Thank you for holding this chair, and thank you to the witnesses for being here. Victims of natural disasters, they expect the deployment of federal assistance to be as seamless as possible with guardrails as appropriate. And like most federal programs, there are inefficiencies that need to be addressed with how the federal government handles disaster recovery. However, some in Congress have taken this to mean that we must make permanent a new program entirely, one of which has already been shown to be an inefficient complement to traditional disaster aid. So I'm going to start with Mr. Cave. Do you believe it's appropriate for HUD to have a role in disaster recovery at all when we have FEMA?
So I do, and I think the challenge, let me give you an example. Post-Katrina, we had 100,000 travel trailers as a housing solution, right? Because FEMA at the time moved quickly. And for many families, that served them well. But I do think if there were more thought given to the building materials, possibly stocking small homes, ADUs prior, where HUD, who knows housing and building materials, could design a competition and we'd stockpile them early, FEMA and HUD could deliver on a better product immediately. So I do think there's merit.
Thank you. Would it make sense or more sense to reform FEMA assistance so it can be a one-stop shop, or for disaster assistance, or it sounds like, well, just...
Well, I think it's both. Like, we could reform CDBG-DR by making it more effective, for sure, and we should instruct FEMA to work with HUD on first-day housing needs getting met.
Thank you. Ms. LaGrone, you have anything to add to that?
No, sir, I agree with all that.
Excellent, thank you. Mr. Jurasik? Thank you. So I'm going to go on to Ms. LaGrone here. I represent Montana's 2nd Congressional District, which is one of the most rural in the country. We've got really long roads. In your written testimony, you discussed how HUD's CDBG-DR calculations can disadvantage disaster-stricken rural communities in favor of urban areas. So can you describe why that is, and more importantly, what Congress can do to address it?
Thank you for that. Yes, so when HUD does the calculation to decide most impacted and distressed, they look at a total dollar value associated with damage or unmet needs. So obviously, the more rooftops that you have to be damaged, the more likely that number goes up. So a county that has 2 million people has more damage in total dollars than a county that has 15,000 people.
Right. Well, thank you for that. In the interest of time, I'm going to move to Mr. Jurasik here. CDBG-DR funding is intended to support unmet needs following a disaster.
Sure.
So why are permanent sources of disaster aid frequently leaving needs unmet to where Congress turns to other sources?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think there's a broader question on how how disaster recovery assistance is provided and what role the federal government plays, and I don't know that I can fully answer that question, but I think there have been gaps. CDBG-DR is intended to fill some of those gaps, but with the magnitude of some recent disasters and the costs, CDBG-DR, it cannot fill all gaps.
Thanks. So moving on a little bit here, Congress began providing funding for community development block grant disaster recovery in fiscal year 1993. So how did the community development block grant disaster recovery program specifically become a popular pot of money to address unmet disaster-related needs?
Sure. So this stemmed mostly out of a Government Accountability Office recommendation in 1991 after several 1989 disasters, where GAO identified some challenges with coordination federally and gaps in the federal government's provision of assistance for housing and what agency ought to play the primary role in that. So CDBG-DR subsequently was provided, and they utilized CDBG, from my general understanding, primarily because of its flexibility.
All right, thank you. Unfortunately, I've run out of time, so on that, Mr. Chair, I yield.